Before we get started, just want to do a brief overview of NARUC and NARUC CPI. NARUC was started in 1889. We are a nonprofit membership association for state public utility commissions in 50 states, including the District of Columbia and the territories of Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. Our mission is to serve in the public interest by improving the quality and effectiveness of public utility regulation, representing a membership of about 250 elected and appointed state commissioners and over 1,000 commission staff in energy, electricity, telecommunications, water, and transportation regulation. I am a policy advisor for NARUC Center of Partnerships and Innovation. We are the group that provides technical assistance to our members. We do that in a variety of ways, including webinars like this, conducting trainings, convening working groups, and much more. On the right is a representation of our fact sheet. It's not an eye test. You can see and find it on our website. We thank DOE for funding this and many of our other efforts. And lastly, we do have some upcoming events. We do have another innovation webinar next month, Rate Design for 24/7 Carbon-Free Electricity on February 15th from 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern. And there will be a link to register for that in the chat. And we also have an upcoming in-person training for Integrated Distribution System Planning Resilience Training for Wednesday, Thursday, January 24th and 25th in Irvine, California. Registration is still open, and a link will be provided in the chat as well. Now I will introduce our featured speaker. Talita Elizeu is a director of partnerships for Government for America. Her personal experience as a first-generation American and first-generation college student motivates her to do work that uplifts and creates access for communities historically excluded from government. After starting her career as a labor organizer, she founded her way into public service within the city of Jersey City, which later inspired her to join GFA and create a better pathway and support systems for early career public servants. Thank you, Talita, for participating in our innovation webinar today. I will stop sharing my screen and allow you to share yours.
I was talking to myself. Thank you so much for that introduction, Hailey. I really appreciate it. And thank you so much for making the time. Very excited to be sharing out about our program here today with NARUC. Hailey and Sarah Fitzpatrick at NARUC found us after in working on a government workforce development playbook to help utilities be able to recruit better. And so we thought this was a really exciting opportunity to be able to talk a little bit more about this program. So I will share a little bit about how we partner with governments to build capacity, invest in early career leaders, and better serve communities. So talk a little bit about the problem that a lot of governments are facing, and that includes utilities. Governments are struggling to find talent to fill roles and to respond to the challenges facing the communities you serve. 53% of government employees are eligible to retire. And in 2022, the government job opening rate was the highest it's been in 20 years. And governments are having a hard time effectively recruiting and retaining early career talent. You look at these statistics here. And this is a challenge I'm sure you're all aware of. And yet we have a really engaged generation of young people who don't see government as a viable career path to address the social inequities that they care about. And that's where Government for America steps in. Our mission is to build the next generation of public servants to create a more responsive government that better reflects and serves our communities. We believe that proximate leaders, so people who share the backgrounds and experiences of the folks that they're serving, when empowered with the right skills, the right mindset, and the right support systems, that they'll be able to transform our public systems and create more equitable outcomes in communities. The way that we do this is by identifying emerging leaders and creating pathways to high impact public service careers. We recruit diverse early career leaders, vet them for the technical and leadership skills, match them to full-time roles in government, and provide training and support. We have two programs, and we'll start talking about our flagship program, flagship fellowship program, and we'll talk about our recruiting process. At GFA, part of our mission is to make government more reflective of communities we serve. So we're very intentional about bringing in typically underrepresented communities. As you can see here, nearly 70% of our fellows were women or non-binary, about 40%, about 80% were people of color, 40% were first-generation college grads, and a little over a third identify with the LGBTQIA community. So this is really where we live out that value of bringing in proximate leaders, people who have been affected by policies to make a difference, to influence the policy outcomes in the long term. How do we recruit? We work with universities across the country, particularly HBCUs and minority serving institutions, to create that really diverse pipeline. Our candidates submit a written application, go through individual and group interviews where they're assessed for things like commitment to equity, resilience, and a commitment to public service. Once our fellows once the candidates are selected as finalists, we match 2 to 3 candidates per role, and our government partner agencies ultimately select who they want to hire, and those folks become GFA fellows. So the fellowship program has a 2-step hiring process. Well, 3-step. We have our written application, individual interviews, as well as group interviews, where fellows do a case study together and basically coming up with a policy solution on the spot, and where we check for their ability to collaborate with each other, creativity, the technical skills that they brought, that they put in their resumes, the chance to demonstrate those. Once our fellows are selected, are hired to the roles, they start off with their training. Government for America's training is based on these 9 core leadership competencies, which we drew from research into lifelong public servants across different subject areas. These are the skills that are necessary across the public sector at any point, at any agency, at any point in your career. All of these our trainings do tie back to these 9 public service leadership competencies. We provide 2 years of professional development, starting with our Summer Institute training. This is a week-long program where we start reinforcing these 9 core competencies. Every fellow from all over the country attends. This is followed after by quarterly trainings, half of which are in person, half of which are virtual over the course of those 2 years. If you look here on the bottom right, we have some sessions, examples of sessions that our fellows participate in. Intro to storytelling and public narrative, equity in government and grants funding. So we're really focusing on both the leadership skills, but also providing some technical skills building for our fellows. Our fellowship culminates into a service design thinking project where our fellows design or redesign a experience in which a group of constituents are interacting with a government service or a government program. GFA supports fellows in selecting a topic, planning and producing an actionable deliverable. So GFA's fellows are not restricted to project-based roles. It is really practical for governments to place folks into project-driven roles because of the structure of our professional development and the way that our fellows will be creating a project that's useful to improve the experience that constituents are having with that government. But again, our roles are not restricted to project-based roles. So we're also really committed to creating the support system that's needed in order for early career leaders to remain in government. So in addition to those quarterly trainings, we also have other wraparound supports, things like quarterly coaching sessions where we check in with fellows. We check in with managers on a quarterly basis to identify any performance issues, to hear how they're doing, as well as peer coaching groups, mentorship, and a variety of other social supports that help our fellows really develop the community and that stickiness that they need and the support system that they need to stay in public service in the long term. So just want to highlight, we have our flagship fellowship. Flagship is our 2-year program. Our experience range for our fellows Our candidates with 0 to 2 years of experience. Our training is quarterly and in person and virtual, and it's a cohort-based model. This year, our cohort is about 30 to 35 people. That's what we're aiming for. And because it's a cohort model, fellows all start at the same time. I will now talk a little bit about our Civic Impact Corps, where we'll get into, it's a slightly different program. Our Civic Impact Corps is a 12-month program commitment for candidates with 2 to 5 years of professional experience, monthly training, and because there is no cohort, it's a rolling start date. So we're able to do so throughout the year, make placements throughout the year. So our Civic Impact Corps provides our partners with a pre-vetted pipeline of candidates. GFA partners with graduate schools, local organizations that are organizing professional networking organizations, as well as candidates who are interested in going from a tech career to public service. We pull from that pool, vet them for those leadership skills, those competencies around commitment to public service, that interest in public service, as well as those technical skills, and have them join our pipeline. Our partners share roles with us. Our candidates self-select into these roles. We approve those matches and send those to our partners. These candidates, as I mentioned, are early career leaders, but in that 0 to 5 year range, but they typically have a little bit more experience. Sometimes they're transitioning into government, so this is their first government role, but oftentimes that pool of candidates has government experience already. We have that flexible hiring timeline, which makes it a little bit easier to work with partners throughout the year. And that is a 1 year commitment on behalf of the partner as well as the candidate. Currently, we are piloting this program with our Michigan's State Budget Office, where we're placing budget analysts there, as well across different to liaise with different departments. CIC's training and support, we have a 1 year of training there. These themes are around these 4 major themes: storytelling with the story of you, advocacy and public service, planning skills and planning for the future, and career marketing and building your career over the first year. Some of the samples of sessions, of the types of session that fellows do, are included there. And then in addition to these sessions that all of our fellows participate in, for fellows that are placed in broadband and digital equity roles, we also have a complementary additional curriculum around those broadband digital equity skills. Skills around how to learning from experts on what they've done, because broadband is such a new and expanding field, what they've done in the past and what they can learn from to learn as broadband, as the BEAD funding is continuously implemented. Across these 2 programs, these are the types of roles that we place for. We place for fiscal analyst roles, policy analyst, and data analyst. In that policy analyst role, it's kind of our wider bucket. Research and communications types of roles, DEI advisor, partnership development, these types of roles that have more coordination skills and communication skills. That type of role is the policy analyst role. So that's the broadest category. And I will talk a little bit about the type of impact that our fellows have had. Leah Mims is a broadband grant coordinator in the state of Tennessee. She started actually when she applied to GFA, her interest was in education policy and pursuing that. Since starting with GFA, we matched her to a role in the broadband office in Tennessee. And at first she was working on the grants administration, which she still does, but now she's been leading the digital equity initiatives in Tennessee, writing the first digital equity plan, establishing these grant adoption programs, and doing that actual outreach with community stakeholders across the state. And I think Leah is a really strong example of what is the type of candidate that we bring. When you have a candidate who has a strong equity lens and a strong commitment to public service, early in their careers, they don't necessarily need to be matched to roles that they have a background in, right? Leah did not have a background in telecommunications, but was able to transition into that role in broadband because of those other leadership skills that she already had that transitioned, and the subject matter expertise she picked up on during her role. Have here Charlotte Devon, data manager at the Colorado Governor's Office. Charlotte started off as a data analyst, was promoted within the time frame of her fellowship, and she created the internal as well as public dashboards to track expenditures of ARPA funding across different departments. This has really facilitated for the governor's office to make decisions about how to use ARPA funding, how to reallocate ARPA funding, and she stays in touch with agencies to continuously maintain that data updated both internally and externally. Jackie Torres started her fellowship about 6 months ago. She is a DEI advisor at the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, working on supporting the equitable implementation of policies in Connecticut. And she has been in that role along with one other fellow who is also doing similar work. And finally, we have here Harrison. Harrison is our alumni, graduated just now in June. He supported in his role the analysis of the statewide organizational health survey within the Office of Administration's Division of Personnel. And for his capstone project, he piloted a focus group to strengthen employee to leadership feedback loops, giving leaders within their departments, people who had influence over others, the ability to come together and provide input on how the organization throughout different departments could improve to improve retention, and also to give those public servants the opportunity to be empowered in their own work. So now, Govern for America, for our flagship fellowship, we are recruiting for our 6 cohorts. We have placed 75 fellows across 9 states in 29 different agencies, working across different fields like energy and environment, corrections, education, broadband, health and human services, to name a few. And so with that information about our fellows, want to just highlight the biggest values that our partners see in working with us. One, it's the diverse pipeline of early career leaders. We do the work of building out relationships with universities, with community partners to be able to source those diverse candidates. We screen that talent for their technical and leadership skills and match the skills that they have to the roles that you'd like to fill. And for our fellowship, we provide our leadership curriculum development for the course of 2 years. For Civic Impact Corps, that's 1 year, to really ensure that those candidates remain effective and become better at their role throughout their time in their placement. So with partnering with GFA, agencies are expected to hire fellows or candidates, CIC members as well, as full-time employees, paying their salary and benefits. For the fellowship, placing at least 4 fellows across agencies. For Civic Impact Corps, one candidate at a time is okay. And then also we do sign a contract and charge a program fee for the recruiting and matching that is provided, the services that we provide. Of course, that program fee again includes the recruiting, the matching, and the professional development that we provide. For our fellowship, because it starts every July 1st, fellows start, we are on a bit of a timeline. We now through the end of February, early March, we will be working with partners to identify where our fellows will be placed. In March, we'll be reaching out to secure job descriptions and work with supervisors, interviewing supervisors to identify what are the particular characteristics that they're looking for in a candidate. In April to May, we will be sending these vetted matches to our partners for them to interview and decide who they'd like to hire. In June, those who are selected to join our fellowship program will be attending our Summer Institute, which will be in Denver this year. And our fellows typically start after July 4th in early July, after they get through the Summer Institute. After July 1st, they start receiving our quarterly check-ins, the trainings, workshops, mentoring, all of that as a part of their fellowship experience. And so if you're interested in learning more about us, happy to answer any questions. Interested in working with us, please feel free to contact me. Our process to work together is you get in touch with our partners, understand what their needs are, move through getting a contract and securing ideally the number of roles you like to fill. And from there, actually going ahead and placing. So would love to hear any questions that you might have. Thank you again, Hylea, for making the time for me today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Talita, for that presentation. As you mentioned, we found Talita and Government for America as we were doing research for our workforce development mini guide. And I just thought it was an excellent opportunity to share with our broader members prior to the mini guide about how this could be a great avenue to recruit diverse candidates and hopefully transition them into those vacancies that a lot of our members see. Um, I don't see any questions from the chat right now, but I do have a couple of questions I would like to ask you, Talia, if that is okay. I know that you like high level went over the main benefits that a partner receives when they, partner with Government for America and establish fellows or the Civic Impact Corps. Can you just
Yeah.
talk a little bit more about, if they're what are the main benefits of becoming a government partner with you?
Yeah. So I think it really ultimately it depends on what the partner needs, right? I think, we talk about a government hiring crisis, and I think when we're thinking about coastal cities, coastal cities have a little bit of an easier time recruiting. And so they might not have the problem. Their challenge might be retention, right? And so our program has those three main components. We have our the investment that we have in building our diverse pipelines, the caliber of our screening process, and then the caliber of our training. And so depending on what the needs are, different partners are going to see different values. Some have a really hard time hiring broadly, and they're just dying for an additional pipeline into their work. Some are really committed to building that diversity of candidates, and see the value that we leverage. They can leverage the partnerships that we've already built to be able to secure that. And for those who have less of a challenge with that part, but are interested in learning how to better retain candidates, I think seeing that, getting to see work with our training and learn from our training is the opportunity and the value that they really see.
That's awesome. I know you mentioned also before that some of the fellows who are placed, may take on a different project, not necessarily having, that direct background, but having those transferable skills and eager to be working in public service.
Yeah.
As you know, our commissions and our, other in groups have these very technical roles and technical topic areas that they do cover. It's exciting to see, that some of your fellows have been placed in energy and environmental agencies. Can you speak on if you've seen any interest in your fellows in exploring more of, the energy, electricity, water, even transportation sector? And
Oh,
yeah,
yeah. So I'll say that I think one of the things that we have realized about what are the problems of government hiring is that governments often struggle to draw a line between what the person's tasks are and the impact that they're having. And when we look right now in the middle of reviewing applications, overwhelmingly, our candidates are Gen Z, right? They're really concerned about the climate crisis. They're really concerned about the environment. And the work that utilities are doing has an impact on the larger climate, on the environment. And I think drawing those through lines is what's necessary to say, I know you're excited, you're interested in preventing the world from melting, right? And this is the work that you're doing here. This is how that would support that. And I think we do see an interest in that field. I think we see the interest in protecting the environment from climate disaster. And I think that is our role there, is actually drawing the through line where it's like, this is the work that you're having, this is the outcome you want to see, and this is the work that you can do to contribute to that, whether that's in the energy sector, whether that's in the environment sector. On the transportation side, I think a lot of our fellows are interested. we've had a couple placements in transportation, and we've placed someone in the Connecticut Department of Transportation before in our first year of the fellowship. Um, so I think there is a lot of interest. We don't have a ton of planning degrees necessarily, but I think a lot of public policy, government majors who are interested in uh, transportation as a affordability issue, as a public health issue, as a climate issue, and seeing that from multiple angles and would be interested in that type of work.
My next question would be, and thank you for, the work that you're doing on drawing the line, drawing that parallel between, necessarily outside the job description and furthering that conversation to make that match. Super exciting. And as we know, the more awareness about, some of what the state government agencies are doing and the results from the projects and, their overall mission and values, the better.
Yeah.
My next question would be, in your opinion, what makes a great candidate, other than just having the open placement or beyond the application process to become a government partner? What do you think makes a good government partner for GFA?
Yeah. So a good government partner is one that is willing to provide and interested, I think, in developing early career talent and willing to have the infrastructure around that person. And so do they have a strong supervisor who has the time to meet with them on a regular basis and provide feedback? Do they have they have a community around them? And do they share also, are they interested in sharing that value of equity, right? Because I think early in their careers, our fellows are really interested in cultivating that skill set. And if you're interested in better serving communities, our fellows, that is what the strength that they have. And I think right now, with the federal investments in energy, particularly around energy, but in other sectors as well, we're seeing the requirements for more equity, right? Or orientation around equity. And that is what our fellows bring. If you have a conducive environment that's ready to move on those values, that's ready to better serve communities equitably, then our fellows can really step into that place and push that forward. And I think that's really what I love about the work that Leah is doing, where in her role in Tennessee, that is the work that she's pushing forward for equity through her role, and stepping into a field that she wasn't aware of, that she wasn't familiar with, and still being able to do that work because of that particular competency. But the environment ideally should be interested in welcoming that as well.
Thank you for that insight. I think that's very valuable. Um, I don't see any other questions. And I think that was the last of the questions I jotted down. Is there anything else that you wanted to add, or just as a key takeaway from the attendees from this webinar today?
Good question. I guess I think if as folks are thinking about how to diversify their pipelines and figure out how they can do their work independently, Government for America has also done research on that type of work, on how to how to shift language on your job applications. If you're interested in just learning more about our work and how you can adopt some of our practices, we're happy to have a conversation, as well as if you're interested in working with us to place fellows. So yeah, I'd be happy to chat with anyone about that further.
Thank you for that, Talita. That's generous of you to do, and I'm hoping that you will get some interest from our members, as this is a very, very prevalent topic amongst all of us. Well, it looks like we're going to cut it a little bit short today. But thank you so much for your time and your very informative presentation. And I hope that this is a resource that our members can rewatch and contact you if they have any further questions. Thank you all for those who attended today. We appreciate it, and we hope you enjoyed the conversation. Feel free to reach out to me if you would like, if you have any follow-up questions or would like to get Talita's contact information. we'll be happy to pass that along. Oh yeah, I think she'll drop it in the chat. So yeah, thank you
Okay.
all for your time and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you, Talita.
You. Bye-bye.